Thank you. And so first of all, good evening. I just heard you have a time change now in Europe. So we will have it maybe soon in USA also. So basically, which means the evenings are getting shorter, or you may have an earlier evening now from now onwards. And first of all, really appreciate and share the merits of your recitation of Chunjuk Chamo, Bodhicharya Avatar. Such a great text. I think it's really the perfect time for the lojong practice as well. And sometimes we feel that lojong is something that is invented in Tibet by Atisha and Dromtenpa and Tibetan masters. There are the manual may be invented, but the core practice, of course, comes from Chenjo, Bodhicharya Avatara. So Bodhicharya Avatara by Shantideva is the basis of all this wonderful teachings and the practices that we all do. So that's a kind of perfect preliminary thing that you all did. I'm so happy to hear that. And in the last few classes, the main things that we discussed were about how the lojong is studied or how the lojong is given in terms of a transmission to a public or to other people. So how it is being taught by your master generally. That is how we went through. But the main important practice is how to take the lojong practice as your own meditative practice when you do retreat or when you do meditation in the morning or on special days in a month or special events. So how do you take the lojong as the main of your meditative practice, your retreat practice? So there's slightly difference. I think it's pretty similar with your Guru Yoga practice. You're all doing Guru Yoga practices, maybe many kinds of Guru Yoga practices. The most simple one we have is through the Avalokiteshvara Guru Yoga, the four-arm cherish Guru Yoga that we have. Usually we do when we do retreat on recitations of Om Mani Padme Hum. So how you visualize the Avalokiteshvara in front of you. It's a very simple manual. And then there are more, a little bit more detailed ones. Of course, Lama Chaba is one of the most detailed one through which you practice Guru Yoga. First, you inviting all your Buddha, your gurus and all the lineage teachers, and then saying the prayers for them, and then all giving offerings and then purifications, right? So if you read the Lama Chaba slowly, especially when Lama Chaba is, especially in FM lineage, when Lama Suba Rinpoche do the Lama Chaba with Jorchu, the preliminary practices, this beautiful practice called Jorchu Kyasam Dilgin, which is compiled in the FMT booklet. So it's really one of the most extensive Guru Yoga practice. And maybe some of you do sometimes or every day the 6 session Guru Yoga Tundruk, because when you receive any kind of highest yoga initiation from His Holiness or any masters, so 6 session Guru Yoga recitation is a kind of a commitment that you have to take. And so 6 session Guru Yoga is again the same thing about how you do the Guru Yoga practice. So the Guru Yoga or Lama Tengyur in Tibetan is a core practice, a personal practice in Tibetan Buddhism or any kind of practice that you have to do. Guru Yoga has to be the first. So today we will discuss a little bit the beginning of reading about how we make lojong as a part of your Guru Yoga. It's a simple form similar to the four-arm charity practice. So Guru Yoga, as you can see in all Lamrim practice, is same. So first you set up your altar in the morning. Let's take it as maybe a practice that you do on a special day. maybe 15th full moon day, or the 8th or 25, so whichever. And so the first thing is you get up early in the morning. So the best thing is try to go to bed the night before a little bit early, and so that you when you get up early the next morning, you don't feel dizzy or tired, you know. We stay late around 1 a.m. and 12 midnight, and then you try to get up at 4 3. It's a mess, it's a disaster. You can barely open your eyes. Maybe you have to do it like this, you know. So therefore, the best practice is, if not always possible, on those particular days, it is good to go to bed a little bit early, and that is one kind of a key to how to make the next day's morning practice. What should I say? Fruitful, meaningful, and then the night, or the night is usually divided into 3 sessions, and the day also into 3 sessions in this kind of practices. Usually, maybe you heard from some texts or teachers, they're talking about 6 parts of day. So the whole 24 hours is divided into 6 sessions. So the first one is just 1 minute after midnight is the first one. So the 1 minute when you pass after the midnight until maybe nowadays until around 3 or 4 is the first session of the night. So because in Vinaya and other Buddhist practices, it becomes very important about when does a new day begin. For example, if you are staying in Nyuna practice, I'm sure it also makes a lot of difference. And the second part of the day begins around 4. Now it's difficult. I mean, I don't know how things work in Stockholm. I'm talking about India. So around 4 a.m. To 3:30 a.m. when you look up in the sky, you can see the stars still if it is a clear sky, but you can see a little bit of the shine or the bright from the eastern side of the mountain, where you can see a little bit of the sun's, the reflection or the sun's ray or the brightness, a little bit, but still it's very dark. So that is the second session of the day. And the third one is when the sun rises. So there are 3 sessions. It's very important. So any practices has to be initiated before sunrise. That's very important. So when the sun rises, the whole day has already begun. So therefore, most of the pujas or retreats, they usually begin in the second part of that day, which is around, say, 4 to 5, around that time. So it is good to get up around that time. It is not only about, of course, if you, at that time, there is a certain calmness, certain chillfulness, certain tranquility, outside, which is really helping you. And the text says that since the rest of the world is yet to wake up, so you have a little bit more privacy or private time, if we talk about in the Western context. That is also one benefit you have. The other benefit is, depending upon what kind of practice you do, there are differences. For example, if you are doing Kala Chakra practice on that particular day, it has some difference with how your breaths, the inhaling and exhaling, breathing in and breathing out, and changes that happens, So there are these kind of also the things that can happen. So therefore, it's very important that what particular time you have to begin your day, but most preferably a little bit early, depending upon how you can manage it. But in the Western, I've seen that there are some people who are not really morning person, and people usually say, "I'm not a morning person." So if you're not a morning person, I don't know when should you begin. Maybe as soon as your morning begins. So that is a good time. Otherwise, the timing is important. And then as soon as you get up, so when you get up as when you go to bed the other night, you shouldn't think as you're going into sleep. You have to visualize as you're going into the clear light meditation. So kind of in the meditation, when one goes into meditation, one blocks one sensorial kind of feelings, seeing and things. This. So when you are in deep meditation. So we have to also take our sleep as a mean of meditation. And then when you get up the next morning, you have to visualize as you're getting out of your clear light meditation. In Tibetan, we say "Veselgi Mane," means in this form of the clear light, with your mind and everything being so sharp, and then you get up. It's not like you get up like this, So that's not very good for this kind of practice. So you get up as from getting up from your meditation, and then as any of we do our the face wash or brushing or whatever we need to do, and then set up the altar, water bowl offering. In Tibet and Himalayan regions, the good thing is outside is so cold. I think it's as it is in Europe, but you have your waters and everything inside your apartment. So for us, we have to go out to get the water, and so when you step out of your home and to get the water for water bowl offering, so the cheerfulness and the coldness outside really makes you feel so fresh, and so your kind of dizziness or that tiredness goes away in that, because Tibetan people believe that the water that we use for water bowl offering should be from a source water, not in a storage tank, like what we are doing. So therefore, we usually go to find a spring where the water flows from to get the water. So we thought that this water is pure and uncontaminated, but it doesn't have to be. What I meant is it is good to use a water to take the rainwater, not something that you have already filled into your container the overnight. So not like you can make the water bowl everything before you go to bed, and then so that you have less things to do the next morning. Not like that. So you have to do all those preparations. And then the other practices I do not need to mention. And so the first thing now, once you finish all those things, what do you do? First thing is when you now sit down on your cushion. So we have to take a few minutes in silence, what the Westerners nowadays call silent meditation, without any kind of thinking, because you need a little bit time for your thoughts to settle in, right? And then now, if we talk about Guru Yoga, Lama Nenjur in terms of lojong, so what you can do is, so Lama Nenjur, when you do a Lama Nenjur Guru Yoga, you need to visualize your teacher, your master, what in Tibetan Buddhism called root teacher, Tsawe Lama. And the best thing is to visualize one Tsawe Lama, if it is His Holiness or Lama Tsogyal Rinpoche or anyone that is really closest to you. That is what you have to visualize. And now the how to visualize that is usually we cannot just invite or invoke our teachers in their human form or in their natural form. What you have to do is first you have to visualize a syllable, maybe a cushion of lotus. A cushion of lotus in the sense that when you see this tankas, at the end, or even the stitches, you see at the end, this is lotus cushion. So what it really meant is it's a most beautiful and a soft cushion. And then on that, from maybe one thing is, it's a simple way, is from the lotus, you can maybe imagine another level of moon discs, a moon cushion on top of it. And from the moon, so transforms your master appearing from that in the form of a syllable. As you can even imagine, if your master has a syllable, if it is Avalokiteshvara, it's a free, and so on. So that syllable transform into your teacher, right? So first in front of you. So when you first imagine the Guru Yoga, so you have to imagine that your Tsawe Lama in front of you. And then once you have visualized your teacher in front of you, then you have to make supplications. So supplications like the prayers that we say before the class, and then you have to say prayers beginning with the refuge for immeasurable thoughts. And then if you're following something like Lama Choba, the detailed Lama Choba prayers, something like you are my guru, you are my protector, you are my yidam, and so on. And then you bless the three doors of my body, speech, and mind. And with that, Duzi Bebchang means then you have to visualize as the nectars and the rays flowing from your master's heart and filling your body, and so on. So this is the very simple kind of Guru Yoga that we usually do. And so for lojong also, you can do the same thing. That's what I meant. And then you take your precepts from him every day, from your master. So, for example, in the earlier class, we talked about visualizing or generating the bodhicitta and the aspiration bodhicitta or engaging bodhicitta. So you have to retake the bodhisattva vows every day, if possible, from your teachers, from your master that is in front of you, so that the vows that you have becomes refreshed every day. The good thing about the bodhisattva vows is that it can be refreshed every day, unlike the pratimoksha vows. They cannot be refreshed. So that is one prime difference. And then you have to remember the precepts that you have taken. What are the commitments? So it helps you to remember the commitments and the precepts every day, so that there is the chances of you committing a mistake becomes less and less. So this is how you take lojong into your practice. And then once these practices are done, and then you begin with the first verse. So meditate everything as dream, similar to dream. There you think about the preciousness of human life, similar to Lamrim, how you are fortunate. You have all this human life, human body that sustains, and all the teachings and the practices. And then think about how difficult it is to find, how easy it is to perish. And then also about the faulty nature of samsara, how we should get, why we should get liberated from samsara, how it is important, and so on and so on. And so in order to do that, what is the only means is it is only the bodhicitta that has the capacity to liberate us from this world, and also all the mother sentient beings, and so on and so on. So that is how you have to take the lojong as your daily practice. Now, for today, we are into the third one, I think, that is how to take your adversity as a means of generation of bodhicitta. So now this becomes really important, because in the last sessions, we talked about how to generate the bodhicitta. That from the Atisha's practice through 7-point, meditating on all sentient beings as your mother, repaying their kindness, and also through Shantideva's secret practice of exchanging self with other through Tonglen practice. So you have already developed the bodhicitta. Now, what are the kind of obstacles in sustaining your practice? Because we all share this common thing that when we attend a teaching or a retreat, what we are trying to do is we are kind of creating a fake kind of thought in our mind and trying to sit like this and say, maybe for a few minutes we seem like we get to something. But as soon as the retreat is over, you get out, you step out of your house, and you're the same person again. So what do we lack that we are not able to sustain what we studied or what we practices to a longer period? How we are not able to do that? So the lojong practice, the Kadamba master says that we are born in this world called samsara. And there, when you are born with your enemy. The enemy here, the lojong master is referring to your self-cherishing thought, tangzin, self-grasping that I, that what from the day one, whatever you do is for your own sake. And so you're born with this feeling, you're born with this cherishment. And so you spend the rest of the day being in service of your own grasping, trying to do thing for that self within us. And so we become kind of a bondage to that. And so therefore we are not able to do what we want. We also always end up listening to that. And in this samsara, it's like the lojong master said that the samsara is like a kind of a place where there are kind of a butcher house where everybody is holding weapons, swords, knives, guns pointed towards you, and you're just walking through them. And so it's filled with obstacles. What they really meant is when you started to do your practices, what comes to your mind? All these unwanted thoughts, and all the things that we do not want in our life. So this is similar to this kind of scene. And now there's two ways to defeat them, the lojong master says. One way is fight each of them and then try to defeat them. That will take a long time. Another thing is make all of them your friends. Kind of clear the distinction that these are your enemies, these are something you do not want. So clear that distinction and transform them into something a mean for you, something that will help you. So that is what the lojong masters call transforming all the unwanted obstacles as a mean of your practice. So with that, it's very powerful. And I think His Holiness always says that the best way to defeat your enemy is to make him or her your friend. So when you make that person your really good friend, then you really defeated that enemy before. So this is all about that. So the first line reads, when the whole world is enslaved by non-virtues, and transform these conditions into the path to bodhicitta. So just as we have discussed before, so in this, if we look at some of the stories of Kadamba masters, the most popular story we all know is by Geshe Chekawa, where he, in order to, Chekawa was the Kadamba master, and I'm sure you all know this story. So he was kind of staying in a retreat in the mountain, and then one day he heard that his sponsor, the family that supports him with the rations, the foods and supplies, is coming to visit him. So usually maybe since he lives alone in the mountain, so his place may not be so tidy and beautifully arranged. So he tried to clean up things, make sure everything looks a little bit better, and then try to arrange something, water bowl offerings, and then when everything is done, and then he sat down and started to do meditation and do a reflection. And then he thought, why did I did all of this today? And then he realized, oh, this was not pure practice. This was only meant to please my sponsor, please that family, because their family is visiting, I'm doing this. So he realized, actually, all these practices that he is doing is for his own self-cherishing thought that is within him, not for his practice. And so he really grabbed a handful of ashes and throw it to the offering. And at that time, there was one Kagyu master, I don't remember his name, who was also meditating at that time, and he saw what Geshe Chekawa did through his meditative, realizations, and he told his students that at this point in Tibet, at this point in the whole Tibet, there was no greater practice than what Geshe Chekawa did. So, what was the practice? Just throwing a handful of ashes to the water bowl offerings and the tangas and the arrangement, but that was the real practice. So his action is praised. So what he really did was he's trying to fight against his ego or the self-centered thought. So that becomes the real practice. So with that, what he did is he's actually using his self-center as a mean to achieve bodhicitta, to support, to help other sentient beings. And then you might have also heard the story that the way he really investigates his thoughts is he has a heap of a white stone and he has a heap of white rebels, the small piece of stones, and also a black. And then he tests his own thoughts. So when he have a positive and a virtuous thought, and then he will pick one white ones. And then when he have a negative thought related to his own self-centered attitude, he will pick a black rebel. So he's really being very honest. I mean, if we are supposed to do that during your retreat, I mean, just ask yourself this question, whether can you be really honest? I don't think I can be honest, because then it will be only black stones, will not even a white stone. So the same thing happened to him. So the first few days, it's only black. All the black stones are getting, and there's not even one. And so he's really surprised at him. So that is how he look at his kind of the attachment or the anger that is within him, and consider that as a separate entity, and then try to fight it through that way. And then one of the famous saying of the Geshe Chekawa is that I'm always holding a stick to hit you, to hit my self-centered attitude. I'm always holding this and always ready to hit you when you're arising. So if you really sit idle without rising, and then I'm also being patient. I will also not be so ready. If you try to arise and become powerful, I will be also more powerful, hit. So that is how the antidote, the practice of bodhicitta against, one's own self-centered attitude. So this is the practice, how we have to transform all the obstacles into one's own benefit. So this is one story. And generally, the practice of the Kadamba masters is that I think we discussed this point many, many times now. No need to go into detail about as we are born in this world, we are born with the 4 stages of suffering. The suffering at the birth and aging, sickness, and death. And so this is the part and parcel of our life. And so Kadamba Master says, you cannot complain about these sufferings because you are born in samsara. You have to know that samsara comes with this ready-made package. You cannot tell them that I want to go to samsara without this. No, it comes with it. And so it's something like you're holding at the hot iron, hot iron, you're holding so tight and still you're complaining, I'm burning, my hand is hurting. So unless you let go of it, this hot iron, there is no way that you will be free from that suffering. So therefore, once you're born in the samsara, the suffering, this kind of sufferings will come with you. So the only way to deal with them in a positive way is to try to learn to live with them and turn them into your own benefit. How do you do that? For example, the Kadamba's important practice is when some of them become really sick. So when you have a really physical pain, so how to, of course, there is, with this kind of practice, the physical pain will not be reduced, maybe, but how to reduce the physical pain or control the physical pain from becoming a mental, suffering. How you can do that. So for that, they say one of the means is considering this as thinking about the karma in the Namrim or the Kadam practice. The karma says that whatever you do now, whatever the suffering or the unwanted things that you experience now is due to your past karma, right? And whatever the good things and the fortunes that you experience now, it's due to your past good karma. So when you go through such pains and such difficulties, there is a good point to it. The good point is that those black karmas are getting exhausted, which is a good thing. Just imagine about the karma, the black karma and the white karma as two different deposits in your bank account. So there is a certain deposit. Now, when you suffer, the black karma that is in store in the bank is getting reduced, and lesser and lesser. So therefore, the Kadama Master says, when you go through suffering, imagine that it is through your past bad karma, and that now those karmas are getting exhausted, so you should feel rejoiced. And so when you visualize in that way, it doesn't really come to your mind. It doesn't come to add to your depression or depressed or mental sufferings. That is one mean. Whether how effective that is, I don't know, but that's one practice. Another thing is even a little bit stronger than that. For someone who has a bigger heart, what we call the Tawang practice. What these bodhisattvas do is, or what these practitioners do is, when they endure with such a kind of physical suffering, when they go through these difficult sufferings, they pray that may all the sentient beings' sufferings fall upon me at this moment, and that so that they do not have to suffer so much as me, so that I'm ready to take upon me all of their sufferings. So when you do that, even though the suffering that you have doesn't really increase, but your kind of ability to your approach to that suffering becomes different, and that changes your attitude to that thinking. So it becomes something different. When I was very young, I think around when we were in school, around when we were 12, 13 years, there was one Geshe in our monastery. And everyone says that he's a real practitioner who doesn't really go out much, always do his practice, doesn't speak much also, always very cheerful. And at the end of his life, he really, he got a very difficult sickness, and that has a lot of pain, lots and lots of pain. And then one of my teacher at school, he's a close friend of that Geshe, and then he went to see the Geshe. And the doctors and the nurses say that the amount of pain that this monk goes through his physical body is something unimaginable for the medical practitioners. It's a lot of pain. So for others, they need to inject painkillers or something, but that Geshe refused any of such things. And when my teacher went to see this Geshe, and my teacher says that there was not even a slightest kind of unhappiness on his face. He was the same person, cheerful, and the physical pain that he's enduring doesn't really affect his physical expression, the way he talked to other people. And that is the only thing. And he told my friend that the only thing he's praying at this moment is that may I live long enough with this amount of suffering, even more than this suffering, so that I can exhaust all my bad karmas, and in next life I be reborn and then be able to take more teachings from my teachers, and may I be also able to take all the other people's suffering who suffers like me, so that they don't go through such suffering. So this is his commitment. He wants to live long, not free of this illness, but with this illness, so that it becomes, this is his practice. So that is what we are talking about in this, about how to transform your adversity or obstacles into a part of your practice. So this is the third practice of lojong, that once you have developed your bodhicitta, you will sometimes feel discouraged. Oh, I actually thought that I would do this, but now it doesn't seem so. It's such a difficult practice. So I may not be able to do it. So we all lose hope sometimes in our life. Maybe you take a commitment today, take a precept, and then tomorrow you lose your hope sometimes. I think I should go back to my own thing, before. This is too much for me, you may feel. But what should you do at that time? So this is how you transform these obstacles into your path. And then the next line says, when you encounter, immediately apply it to meditation. The best strategy here is to have the 4 practices. So the 4 practices here, we discussed a little bit already, but I think it's nice to go through it a little bit. So I will read the 4 practices a little bit. I do not remember the exact line in Lama Chopa in English, so but Tibetan is Choroshid and then Tabjigi. So in the main readings of the Lama Chopa after Kyone Lama Kyone Idam, so there is this beautifully, all of these practices in the Lama Chopa. It's the same practice. So therefore, maybe you all know that Lama Chopa, the way the Panchen Lobsang has composed the Lama Chopa text, the wording of the Lama Chopa is so beautiful, and also the teachings. So in Tibet during those days, there is a saying that Lama Chopa is one of those Tibet Legbam kind of miraculous texts, So we have the great treatises, then we have also the instructional treatises, but there is a third category called miraculous, something like a magic, a kind of a magic or miraculous teaching, which is never put in the written form. It is only a teaching that is passed from one teacher to another, very secretly. In Tibetan, it's called Tulpe Lepam. Tulpa just means kind of miracle manifestations or something. And then it actually passes from Baswa Chu Yensen, Tengyur Rinpoche's younger brother, to, the Panchen Lamas and so on and so on. The lineage is still there. But then people say that when Panchen Lobsang Chu Yensen, when he received this teaching from his teachers and when he practiced, even though the precept and the commitment is that you cannot put it into writing, a formal text, but he could not hold his, he could not hold his joy and the beauty of the teaching. And so he deliberately or a little bit indirectly wrote the Lama Chopa practice. Didn't call it, didn't give the title as the miraculous teaching, but what we say is that this Lama Chopa is the miraculous teaching text that we find in the history of Tibetan Buddhism. So if you go through the Lama Chopa, but you must learn Tibetan a little bit, then you will really find the taste of the nice, the expressions, the amount of the beauty of the expressions that is expressed. I'm sorry to say that it can never be expressed in English, of course, but you can get some of it. If you attend a kind of commentary on Lama Chopa, a very detailed commentary on Lama Chopa, then you can have a taste of it. So in Lama Chopa also, it says the same thing about the 4 the 4 practices or the 4 means. The first one is as same as for this lojong guru yoga. First is the accumulations. So why do you have all these obstacles? Because the Kadama master says you do not have enough accumulations. You need to do more accumulations. You need more merits. So how do you get more merits? So the merits means you have to engage in virtuous acts. have other people do retreats, or in Tibetan old saying, do circumambulations of the temples, offer mandala, and so on and so on. So in the Guru Yoga, we say offer mandala to your teachers and do refuge practice, generation of the four immeasurable thoughts, and so on and so on. These are the ways to accumulate merits. And then praise that I do it for this, and may my teachers, may my masters bless me. And the second one is purification, how to purify your bad karma. And this is similar to the 7 practices also, that purification is very important. And the second reason Kadamba Master says you have suffering is because you accumulate a lot of negativities, but you do not purify them, you do not cleanse them. So the good thing about the negativity is, of course, as a human, I told you before, it's very natural for us to get angry, hatred, jealousy, self-centered thoughts. We all have that. But the beauty of those practices or those things is that we can clean them. We can cleanse them and purify them and get rid of them. They are not eternal. They are not something that cannot be get rid of once you get it. So therefore, they can be purified, which is the beauty of them. So how to purify them? There's so many means that we already discussed in the last class. I told you the story of how Tsongkhapa, even though at such a prestige life stage when he has thousands of students, he left all of them and followed the instructions of Manjushri and went into retreat for purification. And even now, if you go to Tibet, my teachers and the other friends says that you can still go and see the rock on which the Tsongkhapa offered mandala, and the rock, you can see the shape of mandala there. So why do you think at that time Tsongkhapa has already composed so many texts? He has such a fame and name in Tibet. Why do you think he needed to do more purification? So that is what the Manjushri told him. You need more. You think you don't need now, but you need to do more purification for your further, for your future perspectives. So the purification, the most effective purification is through the 4 powers. The 4 powers, as we have, I'm sure you all are familiar with that from your loving practices. The best thing is to feel remorse to your previous misdeeds. That's the most effective one. If you commit a mistake, and then if you feel remorse or repent that what you did was wrong, and if you are really brave enough, go to that person and say sorry, and say there was a mistake, and make things better again. So this is the best form of purification. And then taking a pledge that you will not do the same thing again in the future. For the monks, the ordained members, when they do a ceremony called Ubosada or Sojong every 15 days, because as a fully ordained monk, they have a lot of precepts to keep up. So on the 15th day when they meet, what is the main practice they do is this one, the purification. The purification is very simple. What you have to recollect all the mistakes and the negativities that you did in the last 15 days, and then repent, get remorse towards it, and then make a pledge that I will consciously or intently will not engage in these things in the next 15 days. Yeah, and then also reciting Vajrasattva mantra is very powerful. I'm sure you have memorized that. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Bentena Vedishatutam Sudu Anurada Sawasana Sawam. This long mantra, 100 syllable Vajrasattva purification mantra. So if you do it as a part of your practice every day, at least 21 times, it's also considered as very effective. So this is the second one is purification. The third one is a little bit different in this context, is Dönla Choba, means offering tormas to the obstacles. So if you have attended, I'm sure most of you have attended the initiations, empowerments from His Holiness and Lama Rinpoche. So before the empowerments and initiation begins, we usually have this one, Kektor, means offering ritual cake to the obstacle creators, right? You have seen the master lighting 3 butter lamps and then holding this, the 3 ritual cakes and then turning it into this circles 3 times, this circle 3 times, and then somebody leads away. So that is that even before you or you engage in any kind of even though you have cleared all the obstacles before, but at the time of sitting down to your retreat and meditation, some obstacles may suddenly come in, pop in. So those things is when we offer this tormas, they become satisfied with this and then go away. Or in some way, they are busy eating that torma so that you can do your own retreat at that time. So these are the just not the main practices of kind of what should I say, driving away the obstacles, but one means of driving away the obstacles, if there is a specific one. And maybe you all have done divination in your life. Many Western people like to do divination from Tibetan masters. Go to see a master and can you do a more for me? Check, I'm not feeling well. I think something is wrong with me, blah, 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 all these things. And then when you do a divination, so usually you may have to do a ritual or a puja after that, right? So it's similar to that. And the fourth one is lojong lachoba. That means you drive away the obstacles, and then in the Tibetan Buddhist spiritual practice, we have a lot of dharma protectors, right? So you have your yidam, and then you have the main deity yidam, and you also have chojong. Chojong is the worldly protectors. The worldly protectors to whom you offer black tea or any kind of, so I do not need to go into detail. So also, if you, sometimes, I don't know, but in Tibetan region, so many people have this very strong belief that everyone is guarded or protected by their land deities and some certain deities, protectors. So it is a good custom to sometimes offer them on a monthly or weekly basis. Keep on reminding them that your duty is to protect me. Don't forget that, So that is how the fourth one. So with these 4 means are the way to transform any adversities or obstacles as your own practice. And then ultimately, how to bring all of these practices into a practice for your own sake for this life. So this becomes really important because sometimes you may think that Tibetan Buddhism is sometimes quite complicated. You have so many traditions, you have so many lineage, and so many diversities. So that sometimes you get a little bit confused. Which one is for you? Which one is for you? If you read all the collections of the Tibetan masters, you need maybe 1,000 years to go through that. So that is not possible. In the short life that I have, what is the relevant practice for me? There are so many of them. So that is what Kadamba Master says. In the Lamrim, there is one outline. Means the greatnesses of the teaching is that how all the teachings can be taken into as one's own personal instruction. So Kadamba Master says that all teachings are not different. They're just same thing. If you know how to use them, they're actually just speaking or talking about the same thing. And there is a way that you can bridge them all together as your own personal instruction. The other day, I was listening to a beautiful teaching by Sanjay Nyamba Rinpoche. Maybe some of you know. And Sanjay Nyamba Rinpoche was saying that one day he was giving a teaching to a group of people in Nepal or in Bhutan. And then within the attendees, there was a master from Bhutan. And he gave the teaching for 3 days. And then at the end of the 3 days, that master, that practitioner from Bhutan came to him and said, "You have been saying all these things to me. In the last 3 days, you have been really pointing to me, pointing all of my mistakes. Why are you being so personal to me?" So that is what he told Sera Jey Rinpoche. And Sera Jey Rinpoche said, "No, I didn't say anything to you in particular. I just said everything in general to all the people who are attending the teaching." But the student, that particular teacher, master, took all the teaching as for his own personal benefit. So that's how when you read things, if you take it into your own personal thing, then it makes difference in your practice. So that is what it means. So if we combine all the teachings together, one thing you can look at the commonality in all of them is they're all means to achieve enlightenment, or their own means to benefit other people. So like this, you can combine all of them together. So this comes into the fourth practice in lojong, how we can presenting the integrated practice for one lifetime. So here it says that to synthesize this essence of the practical guidance, apply yourself to the 5 powers. It talks about 5 different powers. 5 powers are actually basically very similar what we covered. The first one is Pembetop. So Pembetop is, you have to, maybe you all have received a lot of teachings for many, many years. You have received highest yoga tantra teachings. You have received Lamrim teachings for all these years. And if you're still undecided what to practice, when to practice, and then there is something lacking. So the Kadamba Master says, you have to decide now. You have to decide now, so that the time you begin is very important. You have to make a beginning. So Pembetop means beginning from today. You have to create a kind of a timeline, maybe beginning from today, or beginning from tomorrow, or maybe beginning from next month. And within this time, maybe within next 2 months or within 3 months, I will do this practice. So you give yourself a deadlines and a date on which you begin, and be strict to your deadlines, and do not waver away from your deadlines. So that is the first thing. Second thing is, once you set up a deadline, and when you do that, the thing is the power of becoming familiarization with those practices. So once you did the first day, it's a little bit difficult, but when you do it on the second day, let's say Tonglen practice. The first day is difficult. Definitely, it doesn't make any sense. But as you keep on doing, you get more and more familiarized. So these things are not like a movie or a fiction book or a novel that you just read for one time and then throw away, right? This is something that you have to read. You have to do it every day as much as possible. And when you do it for another time, when you do it for more time, you get something more out of it. It's something like ocean, that when you go into it, every time you go into it, you get a different thing. It's so deep. The depth of those lines are so, you cannot really fathom, even conceive how deep those things are. So it's not that when you read for a second time, the more when you are acclimatized and trained, so you get a different meaning out of it. And then the third one is how to plant the seeds of, plant the virtue seeds, which is what we discussed before about purifications and so on and so on. And then at the time of your meditation, at the time of your return, what should you do if you have some namto or discursive thoughts? unrelated thoughts. How should you drive them away? So something like, for example, even though you try not to think too much about yourself or for your own benefit, if those things keep on coming, then you imagine, oh, this is due to because I've been doing that for thousands of lifetimes and I'm so familiar to it. So that's why blame it on your past lives, blame it on your bad karmas. So that is it's coming. So in that way, you can gradually distance yourself from this kind of discursive thoughts. And then the final one is aspirational power, which means at the end of your retreat, what you have to do is you have to always make an aspiration that I will keep on doing this. This is not just one session, but I will keep on doing this until I become enlightened. If that is still a very far goal for you, maybe I will keep on doing it till the end of this year or next year or something. So you're creating more and more kind of your goal. You can extend it for a longer period of time. And then pray that, as I've learned in the previous section, whatever adversities or obstacles come, I will transform it, use it as a means of my practice. And then I will also make offerings to the obstacle creators and also my protectors. And so by that, they all become my friend and then help me in this journey. So with that, you never feel lonely. So when you are into this journey of your retreat, you feel that your whole Dhamma protectors and even those obstacle creators also come in to help you. They say that, oh, he's doing something good. For this, we cannot create obstacle for him or her. So for this matter, we should support that person. So even those who do not like you generally, but now when they see that you're really doing something good, they all become friends. And so it's something like you're sailing in the ocean and the wind is also blowing in your right direction so that you have a tailwind, not a headwind, so that you can reach your destination faster. Yeah, so this is for, this is, I think, for today, for the number 3 and 4, that is how to transform all the adversities as a means of your life. And in the next class, we will end up with the measures of the generating mind trainings and the final part. Okay, I think we have, the time is also up. So this for today. If any comments you want to share, anything, you're most welcome.
Hello, Rinpoche.
Yes.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm sorry, I had some obstacles with my internet connection. So sorry. And yes, I got the recording from last week also, so I'm going to catch up with that. I was just wondering, in terms of purification, and you mentioned about the Vajrasattva mantra. 2 questions. If I don't know the long one by heart, I know there is also a short one. Yes. What's the difference in reciting the short one compared with the long one? Or, is it also beneficial? Or
if you don't know the long one, then of course you don't have any other way than reciting the short one. Just kidding. The general thing is the mantra recitation becomes powerful when you understand the meaning. That's also one thing. And also about how you, what you're said about this purification mantra is same, like you have to first visualize what you're said in front of you. And then you have to imagine when you recite the mantra, you have to imagine that first you have to, prior to those practices, as I said before, you have to recollect and feel remorse towards the negativities that one has intentionally or unintentionally committed in the past. And then with such a kind of aspiration, then one have to invoke Vajrasattva in front of you. And then as you recite the mantra, we have to imagine a white light or a white kind of rain, water flows from Vajrasattva's body. It's a simple practice in that way. And it from your crown to all your body, we have to imagine as your whole body is filled with that white nectar. And then imagine that our body which is previously filled with all the black waters, liquids, they all go away from your body. Especially through your lower part of the body, all the way through the ground and all the way to the hell realms, So believing that all the negativities of your physical, mental, and the speech were purified. This is the manifestation that you should try to do. But when it comes to the long and the short mantra, the only difference is that the short mantra contains the essence meaning of the longer mantra. So therefore, even though if you want to do the shorter one, it's important to know what the shorter one means and what the longer one means. That will be helpful sometimes. But in Tibetan traditions, most of the time, people do not really care about what the mantra really means. They just recite it. If you ask a question to a Tibetan, maybe a young monk, they can recite the Vajrasattva mantra very well, very fast. But if you ask what it really means, it's very seldom that they pay attention to the meaning. So this is one weakness that we have. And so that is the only thing. But if you can slowly read a longer one, it's quite easy. It will come up. And one good practice is do the longer one maybe 3 times if possible, or maybe 1 time, slowly reading, following the phonetics, and then do the shorter one maybe for 21 times. That is also one way to do it.
Thank you. And with Vajrasattva, if you don't have an initiation in Vajrasattva, it is still okay to do this practice?
I think it's okay because Vajrasattva practice is actually part of all the major practices. So if you receive any kind of empowerment, so because we are only reciting the mantra, so it's fine. Even if you do 6-session Guru Yoga, so Vajrasattva practice is a part of it. When you do offerings, Vajrasattva is also part of it. So it's fine. So in that case, it doesn't really matter.
Sure. And from what I understood, that if you do a Vajrasattva retreat for 3 months or something, you usually do Vajrasattva with prostrations. And let's say if I want to do prostrations, do you do that with the long or the short one then also, or does it matter?
Yes, for most of the purification retreats, we do it with prostration.
Sorry, it's a lot of questions in one go.
No problem. No problem at all. So we do it with prostration, and prostration is said to be especially the full body prostration, So when you're able to stretch all your body as much as possible. Tejang Rinpoche, the former Tejang Rinpoche, the tutor of His Holiness, has mentioned once that Tejang Rinpoche has a very tall. Tejang Rinpoche is very tall compared to Ling Rinpoche and other teachers. And Tejang Rinpoche says that there's not much benefit for me in having such a tall body, because I need to spend more on my robes, because the robes has to be longer. But the only benefit I have is that when I do prostration, my body can cover a larger area than the others. So we believe that the amount of the area that you cover when you prostrate, it has the benefit that all the sentient beings that are living under those area becomes purified with your prostration. So that is what Tengyur Rinpoche says. So therefore, prostration is one of the most effective. And do not forget that prostration is not only physical prostrations. There is Lu, Ma, Yi. So through your mind, you have to remember what you are doing. Through your speech, you have to recite. For example, the 35 Compassion Buddha, you can recite. I prostrate to this Buddha, I prostrate to that, if you can. Or through Vajrasattva, you can recite the mantra. And again, for the prostration, but if you are doing the longer Vajrasattva mantra, it's almost impossible that you can finish one with the one prostration. It doesn't have to be. Some people say when you do one prostration, one mantra has to be finished to count, But counting is not the most important. So it doesn't have to be. You can prostrate at the same pace, but you can also recite the mantra at the same pace. It doesn't have to be finished with one prostration. So if you do a shorter one for prostration, it's actually fine. Again, having said that, it's always good to begin with the long one, end with the long one, and in middle you do the short one. That's how we do, all the time.
And is that also when you prostrate that you have the visualization of Vajrasattva doing?
Yes. Do all the visualizations before you actually do the prostration. And at the prostration, we only recite the mantra and think about the meaning of the mantra. And then with each prostration, we have to imagine that my body is getting lighter, like this. Like what Geshe Chekawa did, his black, the heap of stone is getting lesser with each prostration. And also that my whole body, the black water that is within our body in the form of bad karmas are all being cleansed. So this is very important to imagine physically also those things when you do those prostrations.
Thank you. It's very helpful.
Thank you.
Can you read about those mantras somewhere? We haven't had a specific teaching on those, maybe we can find.
Alvar posted the link.
Thank you.
Alvar, do you have any questions? We have Yuan here who has a question. No,
one question, maybe. On that point that you transform the adversity to the path, I think you were talking, you said, I think you said Tonglen, but I was thinking how, because you're going to transform, isn't it that you transform your own problems to the path, but now Tonglen is sort of taking in other people's problems. So how is that? I mean, how is it really Tonglen on that point? I mean, I can understand it's mind training, but is it connected? How is it connected on that point?
I think you're really good at debating. So if you are, you can point out the contradictions so nicely. Exactly, you're actually right. If you look at from that perspective, we can see that, how is Tonglen related to this one, transforming adversities into path? Because as you say exactly, Tonglen is taking other people's suffering or problems onto oneself and giving one's virtues to the other people, right? And turning adversity is a totally different way. So it may sound like that, but remember, what does it really, in Tonglen, what you really do? What you really do is when you take other people's suffering onto yourself, what it really does is make your heart bigger in modern thinking. And also, when you take other people's suffering onto yourself, those sufferings doesn't really become your adversities. What we are saying is you're just visually taking the pain onto yourself. But in reality, when those pains come to you, visually when you take it, what it really happens is you're transforming the form of the nature of the pain that is within you. You're embracing the pain, you're accepting the pain. You wanted to take pain as a means to purify yourself, to help yourself, right? If you think that those are something unwanted pains, and then those are something totally against your practice, then you will not take it, right? So therefore, even though they are pain in the others, the suffering, but when you take it onto yourself, you have actually in some way already transformed it. So transform it in the sense that that pain actually does a good job of helping you becoming a better practitioner, to make your bodhicitta stay longer and last. So therefore, in that way, we can imagine turning adversity into a path similar to you have transformed not only your pain, but also the pain that is in other people into a path for yourself as a mean to train. Ultimately, just imagine when you do Tonglen, who really benefits out of it? If we look from outside, the person who is taking the pain onto oneself, or the person who is going to suffer. We see that these are the great aspirational power of the bodhisattvas. In reality, if we think philosophically, Lord Buddha himself says, I cannot take away your pains, like picking a thorn out of your body. So even Lord Buddha cannot do it. How can we do it, But it is the aspirational thoughts. If there is a possibility, you want to do it, right? So when you do that, what it really helps is that the one who practices Tonglen really benefits at the end of the day. Now, this is similar to the metaphor that we discussed in the first or the second class, where a mother with her only child, and when that child really suffers from a very severe illness and about to pass away, about to die, the heart of the mother is ready to take on to herself all the pains of the child if there is any way to do such things. So with that, the mother becomes really brave. Her braveness and her capacity to accommodate other people's suffering becomes even bigger than what's before. So at the end of the day, who really benefits out of it is the mother herself. So she becomes so kind of passionate and compassionate. Her compassion becomes so much stronger to encompass a larger amount of people into itself. But anyway, that's a great debate. We can still debate on it.
Thank you.
Rinpoche, I wanted to ask about obstacles. You mentioned namdok. How is it translated into English? Conceptual.
Namdok is a kind of in English. I mean, that different translations depending upon the context. The namdok that we are talking about here in the lojong class, I think it's talking about the unwanted thoughts. For example, if you have a certain, if you have a certain idea about a person, and then you try to exaggerate that idea, or he or she is doing that, why is he or she doing that? All these things, that the kind of the processes, that the ideas that you create in your mind without even knowing the fact. So this is kind of a namdok, the conceptually created ideas or thoughts that comes to your mind. This is one level of namdok. Generally, all thoughts are also called namdok. Because any kind of thoughts that we have in our mind, thoughts are not directly linked to the reality, right? So it's ideas that you generate in your mind. That's called in Buddhist philosophical terminology, topa is a conceptual idea of an object. When you see an object with your eyes, and then the second moment you generate that image in your mind and think about it. So that also becomes a namtok. But that is not the namtok that we are talking about here.
So these unwanted thoughts, we can see them as obstacles. And you mentioned that there are two ways of generally dealing with any kinds of obstacles, right? You mentioned the obstacles like in terms of diseases that we get, but then also we can have these types of conceptual wrong ideas, unwanted ideas as obstacles. And you said, so one is to work with each one individually, which will take a lot of time. And then the second one was to transform them into our friends, befriend them. So I was wondering if there is also a sort of a third way when you concentrate on a wholesome deed, but then you have all these ideas about your enemy, which distract your attention from, for example, in meditation, let's say, and then they distract your attention. So is there a way to, instead of going and transforming them, for example, just to ignore them, so leave them aside and still concentrate on the actual thing? Could that be a kind of third way?
Exactly, that can be a third way, but that is a kind of a temporary measure. So when you ignore something for the time being, so will that come back to you or not? That is the question that we have to ask. So in the lojong practice, we are looking at more permanent measures. When you turn your enemy into your friend, for example, what lojong says is that you already get rid of that problem forever, right? So ignoring the thing doesn't really solve the problem. So that is why in meditative retreats and practice, many times what happens nowadays to many people is that even though you go to a retreat, I've also some friends here in the university who really like to go to retreat for 1 or 2 days. And they say that I really had a wonderful time, retreat. So, and there is also another idea that in Western, the retreats are so expensive because you have to go to a nice place with mountains, lakes, and beautiful place to stay, good food, so the retreats becoming kind of holiday in reality. And so, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But what happens is that when you come out of the retreat, you are the same person again, sometimes even worse. So you feel that, oh my God, what's all this happening now? I was so peaceful last week and now all these things. So the retreat was actually kind of just a kind of relief from the reality, the world, the real world. It was just a short absence of the real world moment for you. But what the meditation or the lojong practice, what it really says is that meditative state is not the most important, but the post-meditative state is the most important. So what you do during the meditative state or retreat is equipping you with the tools to get ready to when you go into the real world. So in the lojong practice, they say, if you have in Tibetan, the proverbs are always something like that. You have the axe that cuts a tree, right? So, and also a tree. So the woodcutter really sharpens the axe so nicely. And the purpose was to cut the tree nicely, cut the wood and make it into a firewood. But when they stay away from each other, this one doesn't really serve any purpose of cutting the wood. So all the time that the woodcutter spent on getting ready with the axe is your meditative state. In the meditative or the retreat state, you're training your mind. You think about the real world. And when that happens, how you're going to do? You're finding ways to deal with those things. And now when you face the wood, when you heat it, and if it doesn't cut and just fall on your hand, and then the practice that you're doing at the retreat time was not correct. So the purpose of sharpening the axe is to cut the wood. And similarly, during the retreat, what you do is you really feel the things that are happening to you and equip yourself to face them when you go out. That is why in the lojong practice, they say, like a dream, like an illusion. Means in the retreat, you think about everything as being empty of its own nature. And then when you go out, when you started to see things, oh, even though they are empty of their own nature, but still they do exist. This is something like illusion magic, right? So what you said is ignoring them is a temporary measure. It's really a good measure, especially for the beginners, especially at the beginning. Sometimes we need to use it. But if that becomes the primary solution, then there is one problem. Because as soon as you come out of your thoughts, or as soon as you walk into the streets, that problem is going to come. Because you have mentally blocked it for a time being, but physically you will have to face it. So when you physically face it, you may not be able to block it mentally no longer. So at that time, you have to engage with that. So that's why I think what the lojong practice talk about.
Yes.
Ultimately, yeah, what the lojong really talks about, the second measure is, as what the Shantideva talks in his text about, if the whole world is filled with thorns, and how do you walk on it with a barefoot? So are you going to pick up all the thorns in the whole world for you to walk, or you are just going to wear a shoes that is not being affected with the thorns? So when you wear a shoes and you walk everywhere, it doesn't really get any hurt. So the one shoes is you have transformed all of those thorns as not being effective, even though they seem effective, since you have your own protection here, so you are no longer harmed or hurted by those thorns.
But the actual transformation, does it happen when you have realized emptiness? Because it's still, even you said engage, you have to engage with those things, but you still use superimposition to engage with them. And so it's not fully transformed, but you work with appearances, making them sort of less unpleasant or something. Do you understand what I mean?
I know, but what we meant about transformation. So we all can have our own, we all can have different levels of transformations in our day-to-day life. So when you say a complete transformation, it can be the ultimate transformations through wisdom, understanding, emptiness. But when we say about those things, sometimes those levels becomes too far. We feel, oh, that is too high, I cannot achieve it. But we all can have an understanding of emptiness at our own level. So we all can have some transformations, some small transformations, which we can have, what should I say, put it into our own use, Okay, I think we can call it a day.
Okay. I share the praise on the screen.
Thank you.
So, due to this virtue, may I quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all transmigratory beings without exception to that state. I fully dedicate all these virtues to be able to train just like the hero Manjushri who knows reality, and just like Samantha Bhaddra as well. I fully dedicate all my roots of virtue with the dedication praised is the best by the Holy 3 times in order to have good conduct. For the Dharma King Tsongkhapa's way of Dharma to flourish, may all signs of obstacles be pacified and all conducive conditions be complete. Due to the 2 types of merits of the 3 times by myself and others, may the teachings of victorious ones blossom, Drakpa, shine and splendid forever. Then, may the precious Supreme Bodhicitta, not yet born, arise. May that arisen, not decline, but increase more and more. Long life of His Holiness. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good, all powerful, generous, cleansing Gyatso. Please remain until samsara ends. We also dedicate to the long life of Tengyur Rinpoche. May all of his holy wishes be fulfilled. And also to the long lives of all our teachers whom we have a Dharma connection with, and then dedicating to the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Fearless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious one, Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas, victorious lojong, father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. I'm sorry. Correct?
No. There is distinction.
Holding and spreading the Buddhist precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you are the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable venerable Buddha, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge. Sorry, from some beings.
You suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss.
Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the 3 jewels and the great waves of the children of victorious ones, may their smile of reincarnation swiftly be in glory for fortunate disciples.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
evening,
you so
everyone.
much, for the teachings.
Thank
and
you.
everyone for joining.
Thank you. Thank you so much.